Hello. Okay. I'm assuming this has already started recording. So welcome and thank you for joining either live or maybe later on the recording. So I'm Shae and my business is Astro Healing. And so today I'm going to talk to you guys about evolutionary astrology and what evolutionary astrology is. So before I go into it, maybe if you just, wherever you are, just come into a comfortable seat and we're just going to do just 3 breaths together just to land. So just try to relax your shoulders, relax your jawline, relax your neck. Okay, and then as you inhale, just inhale light along the spinal column. So drawing the light up from the base of the spine up to the crown of the head. And then as you exhale, allow that light and that breath to move from the crown of your head back down to the base of the spine. Okay, and then this time, perhaps extending that, so perhaps inhaling from the center of Earth, drawing that inhalation up through Earth, through the spine, out through the crown of your head, right up into the heavens. And then as you exhale again, just relax, bring that light back down through your spine. One more time. Okay. So evolutionary astrology. So when people ask for readings and order readings from me, I do them in many ways. Sometimes people are sitting, they're coming face to face, and other times for people around the world, as this is extended for me over the last couple of years to different parts of the world, sometimes via recording and now sometimes via Zoom, which I'm sort of new at. So to explain always at the beginning of my readings, to explain evolutionary astrology, obviously it's different to Western astrology. So in Western astrology, we have a chart, which I could potentially share, but I just don't want to do that just yet in case I lose what I'm doing. But this one, as an example, this one, if you can see that there. So this was my eldest son's. I figured that to share something, I needed to get permission, and he's fine with that. So in this is still the Western astrology chart. So as you saw, there's a wheel, like 360 degrees, and this wheel, so all of the planets, they can fall anywhere in that wheel, and they all make aspects and connections to each other. Now, this is the same for Western astrology. So I'm using the Western astrology framework or template, but with a much deeper area of thought. And the area of thought is more Eastern philosophy, but I don't even like to explain it like that so much anymore, because we're in such a unique period of time where there are so many souls now in the Western world that also are very consciously aware of their previous lifetimes and have had so many lifetimes as well in Eastern philosophy and remember that, or Eastern cultures and remember greater philosophies. So I don't like to just explain it as Eastern philosophy, but it is based on obviously the principles of reincarnation. So based on these principles, at the beginning of time, the souls are birthed from the source, from pure consciousness, from pure light. And the souls have a desire to experience and express themselves. And this can't happen when it's just in pure consciousness. So the soul creates then a duality where the soul separates itself from the mind, and the soul goes on then in this sort of separating desires over many thousands of lifetimes, potentially thousands and thousands of lifetimes. And the soul's going through. So yesterday when I was watching as well, Joey talk, my brother, when he says that the soul is a motivating force and the soul always knows what it's doing. But and this is where it all comes together, in yogic practices and yogic philosophy, the idea was to be able to quiet the mind enough so that the soul is the driver, because the soul always knows what it's doing. And so the soul is going on then. It knows that it has to have so many lifetimes of experience to sort of exhaust all of these separating desires and to experience itself. And then somewhere along the line, when all the separating desires have exhausted themselves and that soul has gone down all of the lines of inquiry that soul needed to follow in order to have the experiences that it needed to eventually be able to come into this period of integration. And this is where the soul is able to understand and bring together a full realization of the past, the future, the present, and understand that the soul was actually going off to have all of these experiences. And then the furthest away that sort of the soul is to, and during this time, the soul is definitely coming in and having periods where there's a collaboration, the soul and the mind and the body are united. And this is the practice of yoga, to unite the body, the soul, and the mind. And so people feel like they're having moments of clarity and it's all coming together in unison. And then again, we have another experience and it feels like we're moved apart and there's this natural rhythm. But somewhere along the line, over thousands and thousands of incarnations, then the soul is exhausted a lot of those separating desires. And then the soul has a real desire then to come back and to merge. And eventually, after all of these potentially thousands and thousands of incarnations, the soul unites back into pure consciousness. And so with evolutionary astrology, a soul chooses its exact moment of incarnation based on what that soul knows that it needs in order to fulfill the lessons, the accumulated residue of karma, to experience itself from a different perspective, so that all of these separating desires that the soul has needed to experience are fulfilled. And so a soul will choose the parents, their siblings, so Joe and Josh, and I'm very blessed, and they will choose the geographical location, and the soul will choose the gender, the race, everything that soul needs, which is going to provide that soul for the best possibility of experiencing what that soul needs to experience in that next lifetime. And so in this way, when a baby is born, then whatever's happening in the heavens, which is all, a vast dimension, then it's like this beautiful rhythm in the world, in the universe. So there's all the planets have their own consciousness, everything's just going around in its own cycles, doing its own thing. And then a baby chooses to be born at that moment. So a soul's choosing to be born at that moment. And then whatever's happening there in the heavens comes down and creates, just so we can create it in like a two-dimensional chart, this mandala, which all the planets then are falling somewhere, and they're all connecting to each other, and they're all coming to tell together to tell a story of that soul. And so this becomes like a sacred mandala of the blueprint or the fingertips of the soul of that person. And so evolutionary astrology is so magical, and it's really is, like, for me, really advanced psychology. So the questions then that I get asked is, you know, people that are sort of wondering how it all comes together then. In the case of twins, so this is one question that gets asked a lot. So in the case of twins, their chart actually looks pretty much the same. So besides the ascendant, which is a couple of degrees out, and because they're born a couple of minutes different in most cases, besides this wheel being on a slightly different rotational axis, then normally all the other planets are still in the exact same chart and even house. And so, there's like rare exceptions where I've heard that, you know, because of the maybe 10-minute gap with some twins being born, that their moon might have changed, because the moon changes every 2.5 days. So if it happened to be right on that bridge, then that's a possibility. But all the other planets are slower moving and they're all the same. So the chart looks the same for twins. And then people say, well, why then are my twins so different? And so in normal Western astrology, there's not really an appropriate answer for that. But in evolutionary astrology, it's very, very obvious, and it's very easy to understand then, because one soul can be at the beginning of this separation and be newer to human consciousness. And so they're going to play out that chart very differently to what the other twin perhaps was, if the other twin has been a very old soul in human consciousness and has had a lot of experiences. And so no signs are better or worse than any other, which people will ask. And no signs are better or worse than each other or any other. But there is more evolved souls, okay, and then this is a thing. And so they're going to play out this to a different way, to a different aspect completely. And so in evolutionary astrology, so Jeffrey Wolf, he is one of the great well-known evolutionary astrologers, Jeffrey Green Wolf. So he would say that in any given time previously, that there had been 4 stages of evolution. And these 4 stages also have these sub-stages within them. So in evolutionary astrology, he believed, because he was also downloaded this information, and a lot of this information for him was downloaded through dreams. So there's some incredible people. I'll come back to also Gene Keys and Richard Rudd, who I also extremely adore his work. And he was also downloaded or transmitted this understanding of the Gene Keys after a meditation. So with coming back to Jeffrey Wolf with evolutionary astrology, he would say that there was, in any given time, there was before groups of 4 stages of evolution of the soul, with these little subgroups in there. So the sort of lowest stage of evolution for human consciousness would be called, he termed, dimly evolved, which is, a bit of a, maybe not so good of a word to use, but Okay, so in the dimly evolved stage of consciousness, there would be two, this could consist of two groups of people. One where the soul's new to having an experience, I guess you could say, just recently and more recently being birthed out of this source. And it's sort of very innocent in that way. It hasn't had all the experiences that lie somewhere in the unconscious or the subconscious. And so this group of people could act out life really, really innocently, but quite an immaturity to this greater sort of understanding, but pure. And then the other subgroup in this dimly evolved stage is quite different. Jeffrey Wolf would explain it that they had previously been higher on this evolutionary stage and had done some quite horrific things potentially in a karmic way, and so they've been de-evolved or thrown back. And for these souls, they would actually be a lot different in their expression to the other group, which is quite innocent, because these souls would be really angry that they were there. And part of their subconscious, even the unconscious, would be very aware that they were previously more evolved, but that they were actually potentially paying out their karma. And they're sort of stuck in what for them would seem like hell. And so this was one group. Then the next group, which was 75%, he would say 70 to 75% at any given time in any given era, that there would be 70 to 75% of people in this next group, which is consensus, and also had some subgroups in there. But consensus was basically, until now, and so I'll come to my thoughts on this now. So consensus was always like 70 to 75% of consciousness, of souls in this area of consciousness. And consensus is where people aren't really thinking for themselves. Now, in this, which is really, there's an incredible guy actually that has a series on Gaia, Matthias D. Stefano, I forget how you say his name. Anyway, so he also is talking about how, and I just lost my track of thought. Sorry. I don't know, I've lost it. I've lost what I was going to say. But yeah, so in consensus, so he was saying, I remember now what I was going to say. So he was saying that in three-dimensional reality, science for souls still existing in three-dimensional reality, and I know we live in a three-dimensional reality, but he's saying there's a lot of souls right now here that are already have the awareness of fourth and fifth dimensional awareness. And so, but for souls that are still in three-dimensional awareness, then science was our highest tool that people could use in three-dimensional reality to understand or to measure things and to give proof, I guess, of what we're trying to measure in this reality. But science isn't the highest form. So for people even that are living right now on Earth, here in 2020, that are already, their consciousness is already above three-dimensional reality, so their consciousness is fourth and fifth dimensional reality, science no longer is it. They're already completely aware above science. So they're aware that their intuition is, and when they're clear and their mind is also calm, that their soul actually knows exactly what it's doing. And these people can connect from the heart to their intuition, and they know that they can't actually be now. So these souls are no longer at all in consensus, obviously, because consensus is where we're told something in, I don't know, the media or, you know, something, and we actually think that it's true. So we're not essentially thinking for ourselves. And this consists of the 3 subgroups in consensus, but at the highest sort of stage of consensus are some of our leaders in the world of science, some of our leaders in politics and things like that, that think that because they're mentally or their intellect is very sharp, they think that they have the power then to control what's underneath in awareness. But they never can actually have that understanding. They're not there yet. There's 2 levels above that and of consciousness. So it's very limited still, but they're able to actually still have power and control for everybody that's in consensus. Now, once a soul is the next group, which is the individualized state of consciousness. So the individualized state is where a soul actually starts to think for themselves. So they've evolved, their consciousness has evolved past being able just to be led as sort of sheep. And they actually now know that they've actually had enough lives in human consciousness. They're starting to remember the past, the future, put all of it together. They're starting to integrate the experiences. They're starting to have a full realization of why they're here in the first place. And they are now attuned and connected to their own intuition and their own heart, and they're out of consensus. So they can't be fooled anymore. And then, so this is another group which has, so the individualized state also has different levels of consciousness in subgroups. And then finally, the highest stage of evolution in evolutionary astrology is the spiritualized state. These people are essentially finished or about to finish all of their reincarnations, all of their separating desires have completely exhausted themselves. They're so evolved after thousands and potentially thousands of incarnations that they're now here on earth just to guide other people and to just be. And so the Buddha, examples like this. And what's funny in evolutionary astrology is they say a person in a dimly evolved state that's very new, or a person potentially like Buddha when he's experiencing non-attachment to anything, including food, and going on a 40-day sort of meditation of awareness. If someone from the outside was to view those 2 souls, it's said that they would look almost the same. But what's happening on the level of consciousness is so further apart that you can ever imagine, because one soul is just brand new and might be sitting in nature in the bush, I don't know, doing what. And then the other soul has actually, like Joe said yesterday, emptied or unlearnt and let that mind unlearn, so that the soul actually just connects to this sort of period where they're about to transcend completely and merge back to the source. And so we trained more to look at the world like, we're trained more to look at the world like people that are intellectual are actually really advanced, but it's not the case. And we are really conditioned to actually believe it like that. And another thing that I really like that Joe said yesterday as well, that is so true, is that we know, when we are quiet, in our silence, we know truth. And we know what is real for us. But it's always been this scenario that the more evolved we get, the more we know this, but the mind, it's still in, just to be able to calm the mind enough to be able to listen to the soul And so that the soul and our heart's true desires are actually navigating us, and they're the driver. This is the driver, always. Now, even though these evolutionary stages, as Jeffrey Wolf would have said, had always existed in any given time, in any given era, in any culture, now on Earth, we're in a different ballgame. We are evolving really rapidly. There are so many souls on Earth, and in evolutionary astrology, it was always going to be that all of the souls, some souls that haven't been on Earth and they've been in other dimensions through thousands of years, but have had previous lives in the previous matriarch, when Earth was in previous matriarchal rulership. All of these souls now are here on Earth to transition in this time. This is a huge period of time for Earth right now. So Earth herself, Mother Earth herself, she also goes in cycles. She also goes in periods of time where she's in, where Earth is under sort of matriarchal law, matriarchal rulership, to give. So Mother Earth birthed us. She's finished her cycles of consciousness. She births us in order to be able to, or she allows us to be able to be here on Earth, to have our experiences, to go through all of our separating desires. And she knows greater, but she also allows us to go through this experiment. So we go through a period of time where Earth is Earth is in patriarchal rulership. And then we go through periods of time where it's in matriarchal rulership. Now, Earth right now is moving back into, for the first time in thousands of years, Earth is moving into matriarchal rulership. So when Earth previously was in matriarchal rulership was when we were indigenous and lived on the land in accordance to nature. Then we go through the patriarchal, thousands of years in the patriarchal rulership, where, souls that were having experiences through that. The patriarchal rulership is man-made law. So a man-made God outside of ourselves that comes up with a lot of sins, and then there's the beginning of all of this development in the government systems, and we're creating, and we're all having our experience that we need to. So we're making more stuff, and we're trying to get to hierarchies and top of businesses, and we're experiencing Earth from all where it's our souls experiencing things from all different realities. And now Earth is going back for the first time in thousands of years to matriarchal rulership. So 2020 was always going to be a huge year. And so for anybody that got readings off me for the last couple of years, I would always say this would be the breakdown of the patriarchy. So as far as the virus, I didn't even know about the virus or anything to do with that. I'm not even going there. But as far as the breakdown of the patriarchal system, this was always happening. And when a system is crumbling, then all of the distortion and all of the shadow and all of this crap needs to actually be exposed into consciousness in order for it to crumble. So it was always going to be conspiracy theories and things like that, because it needs to come to light. Because Earth, when we're moving back into matriarchal rulership, Earth's in charge now. It's okay, you've had an experience of that. You've had an experience of going all through those times where there was lots of inequality and lots of hierarchies and this. And now Earth's shaking and doing her own cycle, where all the souls that are here now, we actually have to align back to her. And if we can't do that, then there potentially will be two different paradigms of people that are existing in the old Earth and not. But in the old Earth now, and as the patriarchal system crumble, obviously a lot of souls are freaking out and holding on with fear and trying to keep, because they don't have that level of consciousness that's above that. to actually trust or to understand. So it's more clinging on to distortion and corruption, and it's like it's more and more trying to hold on to that. Whereas other souls, no, and they're like, this, we know what's happening. We need to like align ourselves back with natural law, and natural law is an understanding that we were birthed out of this creation that is pure consciousness. We are nature, and we are everything, and everything is connected. And it's just being able to actually go with this transition. So I can open it up for questions in a moment, because I've got to ask, open up for questions. But with astrology readings, and it will come in and they'll be like, okay, so what is astrology? What's this doing then? And we can get, so you can get obviously, let's use Pisces as an example. You can get a Pisces that's very, even though Pisces is like the 12th sign in that cycle, so it's the end of a cycle, so its question that's associated is, how do I transcend? And so you can get a Pisces that's still quite new to human consciousness, finalizing one cycle, but one little small cycle of inquiry. Or you can get a Pisces that's obviously extremely evolved, and it's playing out that completion of transcendence to a really different expression to a soul that's new. And this goes for all of the signs. And so in astrology, there's a lot to it. There's not just like the sun sign and the moon sign. There's the nodes, which is like the soul's unconscious evolutionary journey that's more hidden, that the soul's like, I need to, okay, in this lifetime, I need to work on that line of inquiry. And the soul knows what it's doing, but from the outside, it's not the public sort of purpose that that person might be publicly more showing, or that face. That's more the sun sign and the rising sign to some degree, a little bit different. But the nodes are like the soul unconscious journey. It knows that it needs to experience that line of inquiry, and so it's coming from one pole and it's trying to evolve to the opposite pole. And there's so much to this, and I know I'm sort of running out of time to keep explaining it. I had to sort of get to the punchline, but the whole point is, people will wonder, like, why, how can evolutionary astrology help me? And for me, I'm like, it can help in every way, because you can understand yourself so much clearer than you sort of are just like. So even when there's like yoga classes, and I used to think about this all the time, because my teacher, she knows a person's whole astrology before she guides them through her yoga practice. Like the first thing before we go visit her is to, like, she wants to know your birth chart, because she knows then that she can understand. So what one person does in a yoga class or a practice, if you're telling people stay in your comfort zone or don't push too hard or something, obviously this is completely different for different souls and different energies. And yeah, and so this is really fast as well, I won't go too much on this track, but this offers a complete understanding. And yeah, so it's beautiful. Lately, I've also been adding the Gene Keys work from Richard Rudd with my evolutionary astrology, just intuitively, and where, where it feels right. And yeah, it's amazing. That's why I do it, obviously. Okay, I'll open this up now to questions. So. Okay, I don't know if I have to do anything to open up any questions. I think you guys can just ask. I can bring up, perhaps I'll try to screen share and bring up Archie's chart as an example, and then people perhaps can ask questions from that, just so you can see what it looks like. So I think, sorry, I don't know how to do that now. I worked it out the other day, but now I'm not so sure. Screen share. Okay. So, okay. Okay, so yeah, so Michelle, I've clicked on the green screen share, but I don't know if I put it, I've just got it down here in like, I thought I could just bring it up there somehow, but I've got, I haven't got it like available on, hang on. Oh, sorry. No, I don't know how to still, oh, hang on, maybe that worked. Did that work? Okay, so I'm just going to pretend that that worked because I'm not really sure, and now I can't. Okay, so, oh yes, okay, hang on. Okay, hang on, the chat. Okay, so you can see the chat. Okay, good. All right, so I'm not sure what you guys can see now, sorry. Yeah, so this is Archie's. This is an example of his astrology chart. So what I was talking about before, there's obviously a lot to it. So all of these planets, they can fall wherever on this 360-degree wheel. And these, so 1 to 12, these are the houses. So they're all connected to an energy. So over here, the first house is connected to Aries energy. His makes it look a little bit more understandable because he actually is Aries rising. So it sort of can match up. This is Aries as his ascendant. Archie, so obviously Archie's got a lot of energy together here in the 9th, 10th and 11th house. He has, okay, so the houses all have an energy. So this 9th house is related to Sagittarius. This is related to Capricorn. This is related to Aquarius. And then these planets are all falling in these signs of, this is Capricorn. This is the glyph for Capricorn. This is Aquarius. And then this is Pisces. So he has a lot of energy in these signs. So this down here is the South Node. So this is like the soul, the energy that the soul sort of came into this lifetime with, sort of like an imprint. I'm not going to completely explain this now because it takes ages, but like an imprint that's imprinted into the soul's experience. So in the case of Archie, he already had a lot of lifetimes of energy spent in this area of inquiry of Leo. So this is like more familiar to a soul coming in than even their sun sign. When they come into this lifetime and the soul chooses its sun sign, and that's how I want to express myself, what sort of, how I'm going to play my role, core identity. So coming in, Leo, playing out for Archie, I'm going to choose in this lifetime to be an Aquarian sun sign, because that's going to provide me best with the scenario for the lessons that I still need to learn. So you can see here with Archie though, he's North Node, so where his soul is going, his soul's unconscious line, and where the soul's evolving to, or trying to evolve to, is to Aquarius also. But see how Archie, his is a unique chart in this way. Archie, see how it's 9 degrees Aquarius for his North Node, 9 degrees Aquarius for his Sun. Archie was born on a solar eclipse. So, yeah, so he's really in this lifetime trying to fulfill the lessons of the Aquarian energy. And yeah, there's so much to this, obviously. There's a lot. We can go into a lot of this, but yeah, and then his moon, so like the emotional body here, it's over here in Pisces. So because the moon's in front of, because we're going this way clockwise, because the moon's in front of the sun, Archie's actually born on a new moon phase. So if the moon was over here, it would be balsamic moon phase, because it would have gone all around through all the phases. If the moon was over here, that would be a full moon phase, etc. So there's so much to evolutionary astrology when we're looking at the cycles and we're looking at what that soul's actually needing to play out. Okay, so I don't know how to even get rid of this now. Sorry, not so great at the old. Okay, hang on. Sorry. Don't know. Okay. I can't even move that. I have no idea. Okay, I'm going to go back into Aquarius, see if there's more anything else. No. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so I guess the only other thing is, I don't know if I can put it in there, but my website is been updated this year by my friend Jess, my beautiful friend Jess, and I had Josh Pryor, who actually created my previous one as well. And so I can put the website there, and it explains obviously lots of things that I do. So because there's different types of astrology readings. This one's looking at the birth chart. Then there's transit readings, which is the birth chart, and then the current like big picture in the universe, or the current transits are placed around the birth chart to look at what's happening in the bigger picture and how it relates to the person. And then there's also synastry and composite charts, which is two people in a relationship charts together and looking at that. But I always, in my readings, always start from a birth chart, and always tell people that are ordering always to start with your birth chart, because it's really important to know you before you consider the other or the big picture. Yeah, so there's a lot, obviously. Or the astrology readings can be ordered from astrohealing.com.au, and yes, they go for about 90 minutes, whether we're doing it face to face or recording or Zoom. And yeah, there's a lot in it, and now adding also some of the specific gene keys that relate to the person, because Richard Rudd's put together some amazing work with that. And yeah, so thank you everybody who was able to pop on and who might see this in the future. Thank you so much, and lots of love. Bye.